friends. This is Barb Gully of Barb's Tea Service, and we are back in the studio for podcast 43.
Again,
courtesy on TV Studio.
Yeah.
I'm here, as always, with my studio engineer, co-host, and arm candy, Chris Gully.
Hasn't it been done?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, here we go.
No, we haven't done podcast 43 yet in the studio.
Okay.
So, we had a little break because we had some tea events.
Yes, you did. You were on the road.
On the road again.
Again. Yeah.
So
I think there's a song.
I think there is.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about a Jane Austen tea event that we did last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big event coming up this weekend.
Yes.
Season 3 of Gilded Age.
Yes. Oh.
You excited?
Kind of.
I can't wait. Okay, I can't believe it's finally here. We've been waiting for so long.
Right.
But what we're going to, we always have an ambitious agenda, but today we're going to try and cover the Jane Austen tea at the Bacon Memorial Library.
Right.
Tea time in the Gilded Age.
Okay.
And then our connection a little bit, now that we're rewatching season 1 and 2,
Mm-hmm.
to Troy, New York.
Yeah, it's I'm glad we're watching bits and pieces of it, because you do pick up things that you may not have seen or picked up on the first time. So it's well done. It's enjoyable, but there's you don't feel like, oh, I've seen this already. But there are little things you pick up on.
That's right, and the continuity, because you get to do a little bit more binge watching, because of course we're going to be doing week to week.
Right.
But this is really awesome. So we're going to be talking about that. But first, tea.
All right, here we go. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so this is a Formosa Oolong from Harney Teas. And I'm going to just show this really quick to the camera. Is that showing up, Chris?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Hold back a little bit. Hold still. All right. Good. All right.
Okay, and we've talked about oolong teas before. They're partially oxidized in between a green and a black, so they tend to be a little bit smoother.
Right.
And we had a True Blue Harney Oolong a few podcasts ago.
Right.
Jen and Matt had brought this back from New York.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. We love oolongs. But what do you think of this one?
It is good. Yeah, and I like the. You're right. It's kind of in between that. It's balanced. It's not. I do like a black tea. It's hearty, but this kind of dials it back a bit and gives you a little more of an even palate, I think.
I agree. And do you taste any kind of toasty flavor?
Yes. Yeah, I would say that is. I'd say maybe almost a walnut or an almond or something like that.
Oh, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. Very good. Okay, so yes, it's a brown oolong, and this is, as noted on Harney's website, this is a tea that was enjoyed by generations of Americans.
Okay.
And the reason we picked this is because oolong teas were very popular during the Gilded Age when they would have teas.
Right.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay.
And with Gilded Age Tea Time, I do want to point out, today you've got your On TV studio mug.
I do.
Very cool.
Yep, I do.
And I am, in honor of the Gilded Age, I'm using my fancy Wedgwood teacup that we had, that I was gifted last podcast by Megan.
Yes.
When we were talking about thrifting.
It's so expensive. I don't know how you can even
I know.
carry it around.
I'm being careful, but
well, I'm kidding.
well, it does have a high value, just not a thrift price tag.
That's right.
Right? It was a great thrift tag.
Right.
Okay, so before we get into the Gilded Age tea time, I just wanted to share a few highlights from our Jane Austen tea last week.
Yes.
And we did this at the Bacon Memorial Library in Wyandotte.
All right, that was a little bit of a hike for you, wasn't it?
It was a little bit of a hike, and it's an historic city, a downriver city, so it's right on the Detroit River. Very charming little town. And what makes this library kind of unique is it has a library building that was probably built in the 40s or 50s,
right? But
literally attached to a Victorian home.
Okay.
And so when we got there, I teamed up with our newest BTS team member, Megan.
Yes, you captured another one.
I did, and as we mentioned, they were our podcast guests for our last podcast talking about thrifting, and we mentioned that Rob had come back into the family business in May, and now Megan was helping out with the June tea, which she did. So when Megan and I, we hadn't been to this area before, and this was our first official visit to the library. And when we got there, the staff said, okay, we've got you set up. Here's the presentation room in the library.
Right.
But then they took us up some stairs and, past this heavy door.
Yeah.
We're inside this mansion.
Yeah.
And they had a table set up. They had this table set up with all their tea treats, and that's where we were going to serve the tea. So we said, they thought, well, maybe you can serve the tea here, and then people can go back to the presentation room.
Okay.
And after seeing this, that presentation room was...
You were smitten.
I was smitten with this Victorian room. So we had over 24 people registered for the talk. And we're looking around as how could we get this many people? Because there's a lot of rooms in this house, but they're small.
Right.
So Megan she does this quick assessment. She goes, we can get 24 in here, no problem.
Yeah. Oh, to be young and confident, you can do anything.
Gifted.
Yeah.
So the room was small, but it has a lot of nooks and crannies.
Right.
And that's what Megan took advantage of.
Right.
So there's this little alcove by the staircase. She puts some tables and chairs there. She takes some benches and puts it along the front parlor window.
Right.
And then she expands the footprint into the foyer.
Yes.
Still had access to the presentation, and she set up some long tables and chairs. Excellent. And in less than a half hour, she had this all set up.
Nice.
I termed this Megan Genuity.
Wow. Okay. I like it.
It was really clever, and she maximized all the space.
Right.
And then we set up our tea service in the back. There was this little utility room.
Yeah, it probably helped with the whole atmosphere and everything.
And
especially talking about Jane Austen and
because we're talking old timey
right.
And some of the people who had been patrons of the library, they hadn't been to the home before.
Isn't that something?
It really is. So they're like, because the staff told us they use this mostly for quiet reading.
Right.
So maybe they'll be doing more events.
Yes.
We'd love to come back anytime.
Very good.
But it was really great. We used the space above the mantle for our screen for the PowerPoint. Yeah. And everyone there was really enthusiastic. It was a great crowd. And I want to give a shout out to all of the guests. They were fantastic, very welcoming, and also Victoria Fair.
Yes.
This is a person I have met over social media.
Right.
We have a lot of same interests, Jane Austen.
Right.
And she was there. We got to meet in person. Real treat. Met her and her niece. So just overall, just a great affair. So
that was so great,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just all over a rewarding experience. And I want to give a shout out to the librarians at the Bacon Memorial Library for inviting us and helping us out. To all the wonderful guests, and to Megan.
Nice.
Working her magic.
Very good.
Okay. So now we're going to move on to another topic.
Yes.
A favorite at Barb's Tea Service.
Yes.
If you have your BTS bingo card.
Oh, yes. Oh, here it is.
Gilded Age.
Yay.
Yay. Okay. So season 3 is coming out this weekend.
Right.
And we thought, I'm going to be ready with my tea watching this, but we thought it might be kind of fun to talk about what was tea time in the Gilded Age.
Okay.
This was a favorite pastime
of
the middle class and the wealthy because they were looking to the British.
Right.
They loved everything about the high society of England. They liked the aristocracy. They liked the royals. They liked the country manor homes.
It was aspirational.
It was.
Yes.
It was.
Yeah.
And I would have fit in except for lacking millions of dollars.
The money thing always kind of comes into play. Oh, well.
But some of the information I have about this tea time in the Gilded Age came from a post on the Food Network.
Right.
Just before season 2 came out.
Right.
And they interviewed a food historian who's also the consultant.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
For the show. And she talked about this was just so, again, a favorite pastime of the Gilded Age folks because it was English.
Yes.
Okay. So that was a lot of the appeal. And it was also more of a relaxing time as opposed to the typical weekly formal dinners.
Right.
20-course meals with the black tie.
Yep.
So
yeah,
there's still some, but there was still some ritual, some things that you had to observe.
Right.
There's protocol for these teas.
Right.
Okay, so here's an abbreviated guide to the tea time in the Gilded Age.
All right, let's have it.
Okay, so first of all, you had to know what kind of tea you were going to be invited to.
Okay.
They came in 4 different groupings,
okay,
I guess you could say. And the first, going from least formal to most formal. So the least formal was an open house.
Okay.
And that sounds like it was a lot of fun. So it'd be, the hostess would say, I'm going to be home from, say, 4 to 6.
Right.
Drop by any time between 4 and 6 for a little cup of tea, maybe a little slice of cake, and some conversation.
We'll gossip about the new money.
Yes.
Or the old money.
So then the next level up would be a small social gathering.
Okay.
So here the hostess would say, come, it starts at 4,
Right.
ends at 6. It'll be a light repast.
Right.
And here again, chatting would be the big deal, the big draw.
Yeah.
Then they'd have what they call a high tea.
Okay.
And this is where food really took front and center.
Right.
It was a meal before dinner.
Yeah.
You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they'd have the serious party.
Okay.
Chris, this is where you could be invited.
Wow. Okay.
So this would be where both men and women would come.
Right.
And they'd have live music, they'd have dancing, and they'd have a lot of food.
Okay.
So a little bit of a buffet,
right.
A little bit of socializing.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. And then because this was so popular, a lot of people would be doing it.
Yes.
So you could be what they called tea hopping during the afternoon.
Yep.
Because if several people had an open house, you could be going to house, having a little tea, a little piece of cake, going on to the next one.
Interesting.
Do you know some people complained about that?
Well, yeah. Well, not to go there, but I'm going to go there. This is probably before a lot of indoor plumbing. And,
you got to. Well,
and if you're drinking a lot of tea, you gotta work that into your calculation.
Well, that's an interesting point that I hadn't thought of. But
that's what I'm here for.
Well, I would say that many of the wealthy folks would have had an indoor plumbing.
Oh, okay.
It might not have been easy access.
Okay, right.
It might have been a secondary thought. But I'm because the dresses were more formal.
Right.
That might have been an ordeal.
Sure. Okay.
So you've got that.
All right.
But I'm saying in modern times, if we're doing tea hopping, if a lot of people want to send me an invitation to an open house tea, I'll go and I won't complain.
Make it happen.
Yes. But have that bathroom door open.
Right. All right.
Okay.
All right.
So as we're talking about dress, okay, so you'd have a bit more formal attire than when we talk about Downton Abbey times. Their tea dress was really comfortable.
Right.
Loose fitting, very nice.
So these are the late teens, early 20s.
Right. For Downton Abbey times.
Right.
But now we're still in the Gilded Age.
Right.
So the dresses still would have been rather tight fitting.
Yeah.
And
they had the bustle there in the rear.
That's right.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So we've come a long way.
Okay.
But the dresses would have been a little bit, maybe a little more fun, more whimsical. They didn't have the dark colors. They could wear lighter colors.
Okay.
It was popular to wear flowers, a flower pattern,
Okay.
and that. But you'd still have the high neck.
Okay.
You would never wear anything low cut until the evening.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So back in 2021, there was this article that you had forwarded to me that featured the designer of the Gilded Age. We've talked about him before.
Right.
Charles Worth. And this Wall Street Journal article had a picture of a tea dress from the Gilded Age, but he designed it for a French duchess.
Okay.
She was very well known for entertaining, but she did most of it in her home.
Okay. Yeah.
So she's got this very fancy dress. And since the article was written in 2021, the focus was entertaining during quarantine times.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they, people were, we couldn't go out as much, right?
Sure.
So you'd be restricted to small events in the home if you were having people over just a few.
Right. Your pod.
That's right. There's a term.
Yeah.
And so they were interviewing design gurus
Right.
and top-notch party goers who had advice on what was acceptable if you're a host or hostess.
Okay.
And you know what came up?
What?
Pajamas and slippers were acceptable.
Well, don't we do that?
Yeah. But it's not the kind that, it's not the,
Okay.
The dog print T-shirt and
Yeah.
pants that I have, or
Yeah.
sweats, or the Crocs. This is high.
What? No Crocs?
No.
Zootalors.
Yes. So they were talking like these sort of glamorous pajamas.
Right.
And one was a lounge suit
Okay.
from a sleeper.com. And
Yeah.
at the time, and this is 2021,
Yeah.
there was a link to it.
Right.
They were $270 pajamas.
All right.
All right.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
and then the slippers, not your fur-lined Crocs.
Okay.
These were velvety slip-ons.
Okay.
And they were, at the time, they were on sale
Mhm.
for $194.
That's some sale.
Yes, it was a bargain because
All
they
right.
were originally $390.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
if you want to up your game and wear your fancy,
Yeah. It's an investment.
it is.
All right.
But if I'm spending that much, I probably want to go out. So,
Very good.
all
Okay.
right. So, also, while we're still talking about attire,
Right.
women would wear hats.
Okay.
But not if you're the hostess.
Oh, okay.
Because it's in your house, you don't wear a hat.
All right.
But if you notice on the HBO series Gilded Age, women are wearing all sorts of beautiful hats.
Right. Right.
They have a lot of milliners working
Oh, yeah.
on the set,
I imagine. Yeah.
cranking those things
Yeah.
out. They're really something.
Having a great old time.
Yes. And then another factor of the afternoon teas was this one-upmanship.
Yes.
And we were exposed to that again when
Yeah.
we were rewatching
Right.
the episode Battle of the Butlers.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Americans, even the wealthy ones, were a little bit on shaky ground. They didn't know all the ways of the British.
Yes. Right.
And that's what everybody wanted, right?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah.
So they would defer
Yeah.
to their British butler.
And he could make anything up.
He-
You just have to talk with
No.
an English accent.
You got a point there too.
Yeah.
So we saw in this episode where the new money,
Yes.
they take away,
Yeah.
they bribe
Yeah.
the old money's English butler.
Right. Yeah.
Because they want to really put on their best for their
Yeah.
guests.
So it's a kind of a fun little scene. And again, this is something you pick up, watching the second time. So the English, he's kind of demurring and this, and so, but Mrs. Russell says, "I'll give you $100," and he's on it.
It's like, I'll take it.
And so that kind of led me to, well, $100 is not nothing. I mean, but we're in 2025 and.
That's a meal at Tally's.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So I mean, he instantly was on board, and so I kind of did the little consumer price index. You can kind of do that calculation, and so like, okay, what was $100 in 1880 something?
Right, 1890.
1890.
1880s.
And so there's two things, just for everyone's edification. There was $100 would have been worth about $3,000 back then. So that's a nice chunk of change.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you add in, this thing called purchasing power. Now it's a little bit more amorphous because there's more things to buy and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have easily been, $10,000 worth of purchasing power.
Oh.
So she was throwing money, and he was, and that was, he was fine with that.
He was fine taking the risk,
Yeah.
hoping that his old money
Yeah.
matron would not find out.
Yeah. Conversely, now
Mm-hmm.
100. So if you offered $100, in today's money, it was about $3, in the 1880s.
Oh,
I mean, just so I mean, if you
yes. Oh,
so if you
okay.
offered somebody $3 to do something,
Okay.
that was not bad either.
Okay, that's yes.
Yeah. So welcome to my TED Talk.
Oh, good. That it helps kind of put this in context.
Right.
Like, what are you doing this for?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, okay, good point. Thank you. More good points. Okay, so one thing that the hostess would have
Right.
would be lovely tea accoutrements.
Right.
I mentioned
Mhm.
my Wedgwood.
Yep.
They love Dresden china, and also they'd have a silver tea set.
Right.
Here's something that was kind of surprising to me is they would serve coffee as well.
Yes. Okay.
So Americans love coffee. They
Yep.
weren't giving that up
Right.
for tea time. So they would have coffee. They might have hot chocolate. Even.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then they'd have it's still pollen season here.
Yeah.
All right. So they'd have a variety of foods. So it wasn't just these little dainty sandwiches and scones.
Right. Right.
They would have a full offering.
Right.
So you'd have buttered toast, muffins, waffles,
Yes.
roast turkey, ham, chicken. And I'm sorry.
Yeah. Take a drink.
All right. I'm going to have to take a little bit of my. I'm getting so into this menu. I can't stop. Yeah. Okay. They'd have lobster salad, fish, fried patties, oysters.
Okay.
Oysters.
That's what you need.
That they would prepare them every different way.
Yeah.
Cooked, raw, fried, and you would fit in nicely because you love raw.
I do.
But you like them raw.
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the only way to do it.
And then you would also, some things to keep in mind is you'd be helping yourself. You could have seconds.
Right.
But don't overdo it and don't clean your plate.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Okay.
Don't
leave some for Mr. Manners.
Exactly. So you don't put massive portions on,
Right.
But it was okay. You wouldn't also skimp either. You wouldn't just put like a little couple peas on your plate. It was considered good to eat, but just some self-control. Yeah. And
it's not a Denny's.
It's not an all-you-can-eat buffet. Exactly. Right. Okay, and it wouldn't have been so much about, I need to watch my weight. They wouldn't be talking about calories because
they didn't even know what that was.
No, they didn't. It wasn't on their radar for sure. And then here's one that made me kind of sad.
Okay.
It was be right-handed.
Oh.
So still was.
Don't be gauche.
Don't be gauche, exactly. It wasn't, they didn't really approve of people who are left-handed. Yeah. And we have a left-handed child. Yeah. We know many people who are left-handed, and usually they're super creative.
We even speak to them.
We do. But you would want to do everything with your right hand at tea time.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yes. And so here's, this kind of leads into the last part, a little tip for tea time, is don't draw attention to yourself. Okay, so this isn't the time to grandstand. The spotlight's not on you.
Right.
And unless you have something really important to say.
Right.
And I think that's something we can all use a reminder of from time to time.
Shut up.
Yeah. Let someone else speak now.
Yeah.
And then so you don't want to draw attention to yourself. Right. And, if you have a spill, if you're left-handed and you're trying to juggle on the right hand, chances are you might spill.
You'll be sloppy.
Or I'm kind of a klutz anyway. So if you spill, or maybe some of the cream falls on the rug, you're not supposed to really draw any attention to it. Don't say, oh my gosh, look what I did.
Look over there. Wipe.
Right. And this is something that the servants would have taken care of.
That's their job.
Yeah, so you just relax, don't draw attention to it. It'll be taken care of.
Jeeves, come here.
Right. So, okay, so that is tea time in the Gilded Age.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to have our tea ready on Sunday evening.
Very good.
But one thing that I think we're getting a kick out of is now that we're rewatching, this is the first time we've rewatched it since we were in Troy, New York.
Right. Yep.
And we've talked before on the podcast how we took the tour.
Right.
But now we're seeing all these.
Yeah, you can see the actual buildings, and then kind of where they they do the interesting angles, and then there's the Edison lighting up the building, and so most of it was the real buildings, but they did this big CGI thing, for the actual scene,
right?
So there's nothing there in real life,
right?
It's like, wow, that's pretty cool,
right?
Yeah,
it's so interesting how they made that fit perfectly. This building and we were in that town square,
right?
They made everything appear larger,
right.
And yes, it's really fun to see the different houses. Very well done, Bloomingdale's, etc. Okay, so we've got just a few minutes left,
right?
So I want to mention we are going to be doing. This is really cool.
Yes,
we're going to be doing our next Gilded Age talk is in August. It's in Port Huron.
Yes. Well, there's your Edison connection.
It is the Edison connection. So very nice to have that Michigan tie. But also, we're going to be doing something kind of fun. Well, you won't be joining us, but daughter Rachel and I will be heading down to Cincinnati.
Yes.
This coming weekend.
Right.
Next weekend. To the Louisville Jane Austen Festival.
Not in Louisville, though.
Not in Louisville.
Yeah, okay.
Not this year. So it's still by the Louisville JASNA chapter,
right.
the Jane Austen Society of North America. But they are, they used to have it at the historic grounds in Louisville. Now they've moved up to Cincinnati, conveniently located to our sister, Kara. And she's going to be joining us as well. So we're really looking forward to that. And we're going to be reporting back on that.
We want all the deets.
We do. Oh, good. I will provide them.
All right.
Okay. So any last minute words of wisdom from my co-host Arm Candy?
Okay. Oh, wow. Words of wisdom? You're looking to me for wisdom? No, it's, I mean, look, you've had a very, very busy year so far, and I think you're looking forward to a little bit of a break on the Tea Talks, but you're looking to have easily a dozen or so this year Tea Talks.
We passed that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you, and I have to say you've been great support.
Yes.
As well as our family and friends for pitching in. Crazy year.
Yeah.
And actually, we do have the month of July off for tea events, but we're going to be doing something else Gilded Age connected.
Tell me.
And Jane Austen connected. We're going back to the Morgan Library in Manhattan.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Okay.
Right?
Yes, excellent. Okay.
So we're going to be looking at their Jane Austen exhibit.
Right.
And we'll be reporting back on that. So
very good.
A lot of exciting things coming up.
All right.
Okay. And I think I hear.
Oh, here we go.
That sound.
All right. You got it.
And I just want to remind everybody that the things that we talked about, the tea at Bacon Memorial, the what you wear, tea dresses, and as a host or hostess, what's appropriate.
Right.
I'll list all those blog stories in our comment section when we post this to our YouTube.
Very good.
And I want to thank, again, On TV Studios for allowing us to be here.
Yes.
And I want to thank the extended BTS team, all the folks that came out last week, and, of course, to my co-host, Arm Candy, Chris Belton.
Hey! Thank you so much. All right.
And as we like to say at Barb's Tea Service, please stay tuned.